to talk about what you've found with graphic depictions of violence, sexuality, sensuality, and what roadblocks you've gotten from parents.
Wow. Well, it starts, and it's one of my rejections, with simple swearing.
Yeah.
Beautiful film called Monkey Kid.
Oh, I know Monkey Kid.
You know?
Yes.
Oh, good.
Yes. You recommended it to me in February.
Okay.
Yes.
Good.
Yes.
Did you talk to her?
No, I didn't talk to her, but I was able to find it.
Xiaoyan.
Yes,
Okay.
Yes.
She's a friend, and she would probably come up here.
Oh, that would be great.
If you showed it.
Okay.
So there is a moment where, of course, it's a cultural revolution, and children are picking up what their parents are talking about. So there's, in the neighborhood, these two sisters, a 7 and an 11-year-old sister, are looking after themselves because their parents have been sent to the countryside to work. And in the neighborhood there are kids of another mindset who bully them. And at one point a kid calls the girl the equivalent of a bitch.
Right.
And it's a tough scene. But these things probably happen.
These things happen, and this is what's so...
and kids, yeah, go ahead.
Oh, I was going to say that it's fascinating to me that parents are okay with their kids playing these horrible video games, or eyes are sticking out of people's head. They have semi-automatic
Guns.
rifles, and that's sort of they think it's so removed that violence is okay. But I think we have such a shame culture that anything real that's happening, anything that's sort of emotionally tricky but true, we want to look away from, which isn't good. And I think that it's cathartic in a lot of ways for children to see these things, because they can say, oh, something like that happened to me, and this is how I dealt with it. Yeah. And we're dealing with a lot of bullying and a lot of body shaming. We're dealing with parents. People grow up and parents fight. Neighbors fight. Maybe they live in hard socioeconomic times, and they know that they don't have enough money to cover the bills,
and these are emotional outbursts, and we need to see what happens on the other side. Right. That weapons aren't picked up,
right?
And that you
can recover from anger.
You can recover from it. And how do we recover from anger? And there's still love there. Maybe the love is even deepened. What we saw in Monkey Kid was the girl, I think she fought back, or she used her words to quiet the boy, and she wasn't as crude as he was. And so it's a wonderful film, and Xiaoyan Wang told the story. It's her childhood, and she told it in an unadulterated way, really was able to go back to that memory and convey what it was like as a 7-year-old. Amazing, amazing film. Shame culture.
I showed a film at our first film festival from France, and I think it was called High Dive, and it was a silent film, live action, about a boy on his 13th or 14th birthday jumping off the high dive. And I remember an American parent who saw it and said, and I didn't even think of this, wasn't he wearing a very small bathing suit? In France, the boys wear Speedos, and I thought, God, that's what
he took away. Speedos in the U.S.
Yeah, that's what he took away. That's what they took away from it. And I can guarantee you that I think if a kid saw that movie, they would be connecting with that boy feeling embarrassed jumping off the high dive in front of the girl he has a crush on, and that's what resonated with the kids. So I think it's important to have those uncomfortable conversations with your parents, so they can have them with their children. Yeah.
Marianne Redpath, the director of the Generation section of the Berlinale, says, remember, it's a film for children. Yeah. I'm happy you had that experience. But remember, it's a film for children, and you're exactly right. Yeah. They're going to empathize with the child. They're not having these they may be having sexual feelings, but they're following the story and relating that way. And that's one of the beautiful things for parents watching these films with their kids. They have empathy with their child and the child that they were and the kids on screen. And this is a wonderful opportunity for us as festival directors and programmers of films for young audiences, is that we're also exchanging parenting cues and helping them become better parents by showing what other countries show their children.
Yeah. Oh, and that's a great piece of advice. That this is you're looking at films at an international audience. You're not going to see things that you see every day here in the States.
Yeah.
Just as if, you know, a child in Europe or in Asia or in Africa saw a film made here, they wouldn't see things every day in the films they were seeing from the U.S.
Yeah.
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 But the emotional part of it, the emotional exchange, I think it helps children feel like, oh, I'm not that alone. If, you know, this kid in this film went through something like this, so did I. Maybe I'm not feeling so alone.
Sure, sure. Speaking of films about divers, Andreas Schäfer's film called für einen Moment, in German, One Moment, is a story about divers, a documentary about divers learning to dive, children learning to dive, and a young man who is already pre-professional diver, and the narration from an elder who had been a diver, and he's talking about his memories. It's a wonderful film. Yeah. And yes, they're wearing tiny Speedos. And I showed this to refugees in Berlin, Syrian, Afghan, Middle Eastern refugees, and they said, I just love that because it said you can get over your fear and go to the other side of your fear. If you just believe, just try.
The only way out is through.
Right? You know, and I didn't even think that it would touch them like that. You know, that would be useful in that way. I thought useful in immersion of German language to help them learn their new adopted language, because this is one of the things that's crippling some of the refugees, learning German. Right. You know, it takes a year before they can handle it well enough to get a job, and by that time, anyway, that's German and violence we're talking about. Yes. You mentioned that what my mom said, you know, is in films for children, if you're not seeing it, yes, you may hear cries. If it's not graphic, then I think it's okay to show, and it helps our audiences really grasp the empathy for kids who, in the Middle East, for instance, are having really horrific experiences, and it is setting them back out of step with their international peers in the world. And this is what I think these films have the capacity to do, is connect, connect children in the world through film stories. And we have the capacity to be connected now more than ever through the internet.
It's true.
That was a